I lent a friend a copy of my game to play with their gaming group who I've never met. They took it away, and over a few weeks they had 2 games of it. Then they asked if they could have it just a bit longer to get another game in before they returned it. That's blind playtesting, and honestly, it might be one of the best tools at an indie developer's disposal when it comes to marketing their board games. There are 2 key aspects to blind playtesting for me, and one relates to board game design and its ability to improve your game in ways any other type of playtesting won't manage. And the other, as I mentioned already, is as a great marketing tool. In this video, I'll be going into both and how I'm trying to get the most out of blind playtesting to tick both those boxes. But before we dive into blind playtesting, it's time to visit the numbers. So if you haven't seen already, in my 40 to 1000 series, I'm trying to track my progress going from just 40 email subscribers to 1000 in just under a year, which is my target for my Kickstarter launch. So every episode of this series, I'll be visiting how these key numbers have changed since the last video. First up, the mailing list has grown from 59 to 65. It's a small but consistent increase, and I'm fairly happy with it. I'm hoping that as things progress, the rate at which this goes up will increase too. Kickstarter followers has only had 2 this month, so I kind of expected this. There's a lot of overlap with my email list, and that's a more organic thing that I'm pushing less than other content. Convention demos is going to stay at 0 for now, but I'm hoping to have some confirmed convention slots for next year very soon. And YouTube subscribers has been the real standout in the last few weeks. It's gone from 24 to 38. This is quite a big jump and something I'm really pleased to see. It means people are finding value in the videos, and that's all part of the content strategy working. Even if people then aren't converting to backers, they are still finding it helpful and hopefully sharing it with other people who might then be backers. And finally, Discord. So we've had 1 new Discord member. And again, I don't expect this to be the bulk of my followers or email subscribers, but having that small community who I can get useful feedback from is really helpful. While the numbers are a bit mixed, I have a few other signs that things are working overall in the content strategy, which I'll go into later in the video. So enough about the numbers, and let's get back to blind playtesting. One key thing to consider when blind playtesting is what exactly your prototype is going to look like. If you want tips on making a solid prototype, you can check out my previous video on the subject. But all I'll say in this video is you want to make sure it's somewhat sturdy. With Station Decimus, I currently have 3 prototypes I made using the spray adhesive method I mentioned in that video, and they're in rotation through different playtesters. This means they need to be fairly sturdy, as I hand them over to people to play as many times as they want before returning it, and I want to make sure I can take that copy and give it straight on to the next person. So give a bit of thought as to how sturdy your prototype is, but again, you still want it to be subject to change based on playtester feedback, so don't invest too much effort into manufactured copies, for example. What do I mean by blind playtesting? Well, handing the game over to someone, letting them take it away without any explanation from me as to how it works, and then playing. Just them, their friends, and the game. No designer to hold their hand, no pitch up front to explain the overall rules of the game, just them and a rulebook. This is key to figure out exactly how the game plays, because this is exactly how every future backer is going to experience the game. They won't have me there to play with them, and they might not have anyone around who's played the game before. So being able to pick up the box, open it, and get playing as quickly and as correctly as possible is key to any good game. With blind playtesting, it's important to pick a good and varied audience, from people who playtest loads of games in their spare time, to people who design games, and to people who just enjoy consuming them. There's a few reasons for this, but when you think about it, it's likely that some combination of all of these people are going to be the people who play your end product. And a word of caution on designers. They are often really, really willing to blind playtest and are a fantastic resource for doing so. However, one thing I have noticed is that some of the designers I've playtested with before and I'm probably guilty of this myself, have a tendency to try and fill in some of the blanks. This means you might not get your game played exactly as you expected, and if it's blind playtesting and you're not there to correct them, then you may not get accurate feedback. So while designers can be a really great resource, make sure that there aren't blanks there for them to fill in before they do the playtesting. What am I hoping to get from blind playtesting that I don't get through other forms of playtesting? Number one is rules clarity. It gives me a chance to see how people interpret the rules I've written without me explaining it. Number two is pacing. So how does the game play when I'm not there helping encourage it move along? When I'm playtesting at conventions, for example, I'll be shuffling decks, laying out cards, and helping the game progress. When I'm not there to do that, does the game drag on? Number three, first impressions. When someone picks up the box and opens those instructions for the first time, how approachable does it look? Does it look like something that they are keen to get to the table, or does it look like it's going to be a real slog for them? And finally, how much they enjoy the game. Yes, you get this from other types of playtesting, but A, the feedback can be a bit more honest when it's blind playtesting, and B, you just have access to a much larger number of playtesters. What have I learned doing this with Station Decimus? So this isn't just a thought exercise. As I mentioned earlier, I have copies out at the moment in the hands of people who are blind playtesting it. And it's already provided some really good feedback, largely around the rulebook, as I'd hoped and expected. There's been a consistent theme around the clarity of the rules layout, how it can be tricky to quickly reference certain rules back in the rulebook when you have a question while playing the game, and how that could be improved. Likewise, two things that have been noted as missing from the rulebook is a setup picture. When I've playtested in person, I've set the game up on the table and we've got going. Without me there to do it, it's taken longer for people to work out exactly where components should be and what's going to be an easy way to lay the game out, which you otherwise won't discover until you start playing. And also having a more accurate components list. I have a bit of a components list which gives a breakdown of different parts of cards, but it doesn't include things like how many of each card there are, and it doesn't link back to which names belong to which decks as I refer to them in the rulebook. This has been some great feedback I've got, and I'm definitely going to implement these in the future. Moving on to the second key aim of blind playtesting, and it's an invaluable marketing tool. I mentioned I've got 3 copies of Station Decimus in rotation at the moment with playtesters. Station Decimus can play up to 6 players, which means at any given time there could be 18 people playing the game. That's 18 people getting first-hand experience and hopefully really enjoying themselves playing the game. Someone who's played the game, got a feel of whether or not it's for them, and also might feel somewhat invested in the development process by providing feedback, is far more likely to be interested in backing the game. This feeds back into the 4th principle I named in my previous 40 to 1000 video around letting the game do the talking. I'm a big believer that if I get the game in front of people and let them make their own mind up for it, then they will be inclined to back it because I hope it brings them a genuinely enjoyable experience. And a key part of making sure this whole process is seamless for the people playtesting is the prototype and what's in the box. So, as I mentioned earlier, I use the spray adhesive cards because they are quite durable and give a better playtesting experience. In the copies I hand out, however, I also pop inside a business card and a small note stuck to the inside of the lid just here. I don't have one in this copy because this is my own playtesting copy, but that note basically just says, "Thank you for taking the time to playtest my game. I really hope you'll enjoy it. And if you'd like to give feedback, here are the ways you can do so." It also lets them know that I'm planning on launching this as a Kickstarter next year, and that I would love them to be part of the journey with me, giving them a link to my email sign up. There's no obligation and no playtester should feel obliged to sign up, but if they did genuinely enjoy it and are interested, I want to make it as easy as possible for them to follow along. A couple of slightly more practical tips that I've picked up from blind playtesting, and that's to set a clear understanding of loan periods before you lend the games out. I lent the first batch of games out to 3 eager playtesters and sat waiting to hear back from them. and then I didn't hear back from them for weeks. Eventually, after some prodding and poking, they said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I'll get it to the table as soon as I can, and then I'll let you know how it goes." This wasn't because they didn't want to play the game or because they were being rude. They'd simply not realised that I only had a limited number of copies and I was hoping to get them out to as many playtesters as possible. If in advance I'd simply said something of, "If I lend you this game now, can I get it back in a few weeks?" they'd have probably agreed or said I probably won't get it to the table by then, and I could have probably given it to someone else in the meantime and then given it to them in a future round of playtesting. So this is a really key point to try and iron those out early on, because with a limited number of copies like mine, you want to make sure your games are always being played. One thing I mentioned in my previous video on print and plays is that it can be quite challenging to get feedback from people when you're not there with them playing the game. Blind playtesting helps us somewhat with physical copies because you'll have to see the person again to get the copy back, but there could be another 5 people they played it with who you might not hear feedback from. So again, like I mentioned in that video, I try and list all of the ways that you can provide feedback in the game note that I mentioned earlier, and I try and list as many of them as I can think of. So all of my socials, my email, those kind of things, and say, here are all the ways you can reach me. Use whichever one is best for you. I don't mind. If you want to reach me in person, that's fine too. I just want the feedback in whichever way makes your life easier, because you, by playtesting, are doing me a huge favor. So how do you go about finding playtesters? The obvious answer is friends and family, people you know, and people who you know like board games. This is a great way of getting your game in front of people quickly, and you probably won't feel bad about chasing them if they haven't given your game back when you expected it. But if, like me, you know a lot of other board game designers, you do risk falling into that trap I mentioned earlier, and your playtesting group might not be fully representative of your future backers. The second method is via my content strategy or social media more generally. I've actually had a few people who follow me reach out and ask if they can playtest the game, which, barring some logistical issues I'm still working through how I'll get it to them, is something I will definitely take them up on. This means I'll get people who have no reason to try and say nice things to me because they aren't friends or family, and people who I otherwise just wouldn't get the game in front of, giving me a far more diverse view of feedback. And finally, groups like Playtest UK, which I'm part of, I'm hoping to take some copies with me there and asking if any of the gamers there would like to take a copy away to have a go with. Again, though, this does fall into the designer issue, but they're really nice people, and I'm sure they will provide some useful feedback for me anyway, even if they may be filling in those blanks. That's of course a perfect chance to ask if any one of my viewers would like to playtest the game. If you're based in the UK, feel free to drop a comment and let me know that you're interested, and we can try and work something out. If you're not based in the UK and you'd like to playtest the game, you can get a complete free print and play when you sign up to my newsletter. It's the full game. You'll just have to cut the cards out yourself and won't get the more durable ones that I've already made. A quick note on handing your game to people to play, probably with complete strangers who you'll never meet, is that for me at least it was quite a nervous process, and one I was surprised at given how much playtesting I've done in person. There's something a bit more nerve-wracking about knowing you're not going to see the people play the game. You're not probably going to get a complete view of what happened, and you'll just have to trust the feedback. However, the more that feedback has come in, the more productive it's been, and as I mentioned earlier, had some really great constructive points, and this has really helped ease the process, so it's definitely something worth doing. The signs that the 40 to 1000 strategy are working then, starting with blind playtesting. I've had several of my blind playtesters ask when I'll be launching the game and said they would love to back it. This is a great sign, obviously, and hopefully the more copies I get out and the more people I get playing it, the more it will help build that list. Other signs that the overall strategy is working come from my content strategy. So if you watch that video, you'll know that I write articles on my website for SEO, so search engine optimization. Because my domain is hosted by Google, I get access to search.google.com, which can provide really useful insights into how and where people are finding my website. And since writing those articles, there's been a steady increase to the number of impressions my website is making when people search for certain terms like quarterbacking, push your luck, and prototyping. So these are really good signs. The numbers are still quite small, but the fact that it's beginning to increase shows that my domain authority is slowly growing as I put out more of these articles, and hopefully it will become an important part of the overall marketing strategy going forward. Those are my tips for using blind playtesting, both as a design tool and as a marketing one. I hope you found it useful, and if you're interested in trying Station Decimus out, either drop a comment or sign up to my email list, as I mentioned earlier.